YouTube. And
Okay.
there we go.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good
This
morning,
mic is
Sharon,
on
Lynn,
now.
everybody. It's at ACIM gather. I'd like to start with today's lesson 285. My holiness shines bright and clear today. And Ken Wapnick's commentary is we should awaken every morning in joy because of the happy things that we will learn this day. Different forms of forgiveness. So, yeah, that's what we're here for. The world is a classroom to learn lessons, and the lessons are what goes on in our life, and realize that instead of seeing it as we're a victim, that we're actually powerful, and we're doing this stuff to ourselves. And when I stop doing it to myself, I can be happy. So the idea, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy, comes up for me because as long as you think anything in this world is real, you want to be right. No, I'm sorry. I gave up being right a long time ago. I am happy. God's will for me is perfect happiness, lesson 101. And I share God's will for my happiness, lesson 102. And of course, God being love is also happiness. So love and happiness are one and the same. That's lesson 103. So you gotta laugh. You know, if you take anything in this world seriously, you're out of your gourd. With that, I'll turn this mic on over to you, Sharon Love. Hi, Regis. Sharon, are you muted?
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. Hi, Regis. Okay. It's funny because I haven't watched much television and I have COVID. So I got it on Monday and I'm probably, getting better. My husband got it on Friday, so he still had it yesterday. So it's kind of like a week of just being quiet, listening to things I wanted to. And, I remember when I left in the apartment I had in downtown Altoona, I had this voice in me say, get rid of the news. And I actually moved from my uncle's building to an apartment. And I said, I don't want anything to do with cable because it's a distraction. Now, I never opened the course yet at that point. So people in my step meeting used to say, wow, that's amazing. I didn't know why that happened. But again, I was moving into a whole different consciousness. And it doesn't happen right away. It's a process. So I don't know enough about what's going on in the world of form, but I do know that, I am Jewish, and this war is definitely affecting what we would call my people, right, Doug? Because that's the way we were brought up. It's like my sister said to me yesterday, Sharon, look at all these Jews that were killed. It's us. And I'm just listening because that's just the old paradigm. That is the third dimension. To believe that, it's just the Jewish people, this is what, I remember listening to Marianne Williamson's years ago, her saying that she didn't like Helen Reddy's song, You and Me Against the World. And she didn't like it at all. This is after the course, of course, but she was just so funny when she said that, because isn't that a song that the ego would love? You and me against the world. And then you hold on to whoever's the closest to you. But again, there is no world, right? It's all in my mind. However, I never lie about the experience, right? Because you can't. I mean, that is very important. Jesus makes mention of that through the course. You do not want to lie for your experience. And there is something seemingly going on. So this was from a teacher, and I'm prompted to read it. His name is Daniel Shea, and he writes, what if there are no sides? Now, he writes, He writes, if you're going to read this, please read it all the way. I don't know that I will. It says, I don't know if you've seen the footage from the situation in Israel. There is quite a difference between what they're showing international or American news versus Israeli news. The latter is not sparing the harsh footage, such as Israelis at a party being shot at and running for their lives, the difficult interviews with parents whose children are held hostage, interviews with people who have been injured and are furious that Army and the Israeli and American intelligence did not see any of this coming, and the stories of those who were hiding in their homes as terrorists invaded. And I'll spare you the rest of the details of what the Hamas terrorists did. Now, that's the thing. You know, as an ego, we want to know. We want to know, what did he do and how did he do it? And did you believe? I didn't watch any of it, right? Because when you look at the laws of chaos, this is attraction for every ego. Why? Because we can put all our self-hatred on that, can't we? That's just another way. But what Daniel's basically saying, this really hit him hard, because on the human level, he writes, I am an Israeli, and this is happening to my country, to my people, to my friends, to my family. Israel is so small, but the odds of you knowing someone who's affected or someone who knows someone, you know, that's just huge. You know, like everybody, I never even knew that Israel was so small. I really didn't. You know, I've never been to Israel. Actually, my sister went years ago. She went and she said they weren't that nice to the American Jews. They're angry. They're angry that we're here, you know. And what else is new? Everybody's angry. That's all we are. It's angry. Angry about what? Angry about nothing. Angry about right and wrong. Angry about a country. It's all just smoke and mirrors for the truth of our separation with God. But people like are watching it now and saying, I can't believe this happened. I thought this would never happen again. And here's the thing. Where's it really happening? It's happening in Israel, right? But the attraction for most beings is to watch it, to be, because my sister says, Sharon, you got to watch it. I mean, look at these people, what they're going through. There are people. Well, no. That is our conditioned mind. We have to always believe that we understand what's going on here, why it's going on here, and who's right and who's wrong. And what Daniel's basically saying is that he's gotten to a place, and I can read the whole thing, but I read it to myself, is that in order for him to be healed, because he's in that awakened being state now where he feels everything, he had to feel it. So he could love these people that are killing supposedly his people, because that's what we're asked to do. But we don't want to see them as people, because as soon as you see them as people, you can't move, right? You're seeing them as the one, let's face it, this God is a process. This is a process of unfolding of life force. And what we need to do is hold them in the light and love them in the light. I couldn't deny that this happened, but I could say that I didn't watch it. And I haven't watched it since. Do I feel at all guilty? Absolutely not. Because what is my whole goal here? How do I heal this one mind? By staying in peace. The more drama I suck in there, the more everybody in my energy field is going to feel it, right? Because we are all responsible for how we see things once we know that nothing really just happened. So it's kind of like you get to a place where, like, I realize now with this happening in Israel that it's going to make more crazy news and all that other stuff. However, what am I told by Jesus to do? To hold them in the light. How do I do that? By going inside. By going inside. What does that mean? Just shutting my eyes. There really is no outside, inside. It's all one thing. It's all consciousness. And with that, I'm going to ask you to continue, Doug. Over to you.
Okay. For some reason, I wasn't expecting you to pick up on what's in the news, the current events, what's going on. But of course, that's what everyone is talking about. And as you say, if you turn on the boob tube, that's what you're going to see. So as you were sharing, I was looking at my own thoughts about the same thing. And of course, Daniel Shea, who used to teach here at ACIM Gather many years ago, Suzanne de Kaiser met him online, invited him here, and we all became good friends. I took his he's being very aligned with his own course. He has a course which I took called the Headless. I think it's the Headless. What?
The headless way.
Yeah, exactly. So when he teaches, he's teaching exactly as the course. We're not a body. That the idea of headlessness is, I always remember the one of the exercises that he took us through, when you're driving a car and you're in the car and you're driving in this beautiful scenery with the trees around you and, you know, with the colors of autumn and this and that, and you think that you're passing through. No, it's the exact opposite. All the scenery is passing through you. Ah, big difference. Big difference. I am all. I'm not this body. So as long as you identify with bodies and you turn on the boob tube, you're going to be looking at something that is horrible, horrifying. I mean, how could they? They're animals. They're savages. Well, because we identify with our body, and to hear that bodies are tortured and terrible things are being done to bodies makes me afraid that it could happen to me too. So even though I look out and project it out into the world and see it on the boob tube, the truth is I think I'm a body and I can be hurt. And my God, you know, I feel so sorry for those people. What people? What sides? Exactly as Daniel Shea says, there are no sides. Kind of reminds me of the movie Avatar. If you remember the movie, the original Avatar, which was, you know, worldwide acclaimed, won the Academy Award, I think, et cetera, et cetera. They're having this battle, this war, and there's the good guys and the bad guys. And he says to his native friend, he says, can't you tell your God to favor us? To which she says, our God doesn't take sides. So if you're at war, and if you're here in a body, you are at war. You want to, the only reason we came as a body is to blame other bodies so I can be a victim and feel unloved, which is the exact opposite of the truth. I mean, when you see the whole thing, you kind of smile and laugh and say, well, there I go again, you know. So the whole idea of identifying with, I'm not even going to call it a religion, because Judaism, as you know, it really is not a religion. It's a tradition, thousands of years of tradition. And our tradition is that we get crucified. Yeah, no matter where we are crucified. Didn't they crucify Jesus? I mean, Jesus was Jewish. and this sounds like another crucifixion. I must admit that I see it exactly as the Course would see it. It is a movie. I'm in a theater and I'm watching the movie, and of course, there's the idea there's the good guys and the bad guys. I understand that, but I don't really get into the judgment of it. But I do have one weakness, and I'll share my weakness on this. Just like the people in Israel government, Netanyahu says, we were surprised. We never thought this would ever happen. We were taken off guard. How could that be when Israel is the super power of intelligence in the world? I mean, America goes to Israel to learn how they do their intelligence. How could that happen that they miss this? And that seems to be the biggest question, although everyone says, we'll talk about that later. Right now, we're going to go and get them. We're going to obliterate them. So they have amassed 360,000 Israeli troops on the borders of Gaza. And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute. You're taking all the troops you have and you're putting them in one place? I don't know. That doesn't sound too smart. We're gonna obliterate them. We're gonna kill them. I don't know. You were taken off guard last week. I hope you don't get taken off guard again, because you could blow the whole thing by putting everybody in one place. And if some malevolent force wants to obliterate you, you're giving them a golden opportunity to do that. I hope I'm wrong. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong. But those are the things that go on in Dove's kepi, and Dove's kepi, and Dove's dream. With that, I'll turn it on over to you, dear.
Dove, in your kepi, in your Kabbalah, right? Your little Kabbalah.
Yeah.
When you were talking, the truth is that this stuff that comes in our head, it just comes. It's not like, we pick it, it just comes in our head. But why I decided to read this is because yesterday one of my sisters said to me, Sharon, you should watch it. I mean, these are your people. This is how guilt works. You see, guilt is it demands punishment. It demands that we watch these children and mothers being killed. I mean, do you really think that's going to help anyone by watching that? We all know what helps, and that is peace. That is the peace of God. So, what he was saying is, because what if there's no answer, on picking sides, right? So Daniel says the real answer, the only healing lies always in the fact there are no sides. There's only one being. That being is God. And this opens us up to the vision that the abuser, abused, and abused are all one. The vision leads effortlessly to a feeling of compassion for the terrorist. How disconnected from the self must one be to behave in such a way? I see the Holy Spirit standing between the terrorist and the bleeding woman he was shaving to a pickup truck. And it whispers, don't you remember that you are each other? And I see in the eye of my heart, the two coming together and recognizing their oneness. What else would heal? What we are seeing is the pain of separation at its best. And that is really the whole core of every human's problem. Thinking that we are separate, that we are not connected, that we are alone, that we could be annihilated, all those ridiculous separation thoughts, right? So he writes here, we are seeing one of the lowest frequencies that exists on the planet. See, this is the thing about us. We are really vibrational beings out in this contextual field. So we're multi-dimensional beings, meaning that, first of all, they can't kill us because we are everything. You can't kill us. We look like you could, and it's probably 95% water that we are in this appearance that we seemingly have, but we're really not people. It's false evidence appearing real, right? So, this is what the whole course is about. Whenever you are hurting your brother, you're hurting yourself, because everybody is God. Everybody is love. Everybody's perfect. And everything else is a story. But how about this story? It's going to kill all these people. That's the whole point. The egoic mind is force. It will come up with every story to tempt us. Isn't that through the course he talks about temptation? Now, the temptation is that I cannot watch it. That's what's so weird. Like, I can't even make myself watch it, because there's almost like no with me. And I don't know why, but why is only the ego? I'm just told not to watch it because I already have seen things like this, and I never enjoy that. I'm still in a body, so maybe the referencing will just bother me, of course. And especially if you bring up children, then it's really hard for all humans to believe that people would hurt them. So we're really in a low frequency when we believe that these people are doing anything. And people don't realize this. Like, when we are in the world of form, we are in fear. And the lower frequency is there. It's called the lower ego, right? Because the ego, as we go, Daniel speaks about that the ego really doesn't go anywhere. It just becomes balanced. It's no longer like, I don't like that, and I don't like her. It's just quieter. It's just a quiet little guy. That's what happens. He did say something that I love here. He says, if you come to me with suffering that feels very real to you, and I say it isn't real, does that really solve it for you? We must genuinely change our minds, our thinking. We can't just repeat spiritual concepts and slogans as if that carries any power. My work is not to repeat concepts to you, but to actually take your hand and walk with you home together. As we walk, you will feel lighter. You will have a different perception of things, and it will well up from within you. It won't be a mere dry concept, but a genuine experience. It is a choice to side with either Israel or with Hamas or with Palestine. But whichever one you side with, know you are making the same choice, the choice for war. And that is the truth. You see, that is what I was talking about a couple of weeks ago. When you pick a Republican or a Democrat, well, I could say that's a better side, that, blah, blah, blah. But you're still in duality. So you're still going to be in right and wrong, up and down, wrong, right, whatever. You can't get it right here. Nothing's right here. Remember, 2 + 2 = 5 here. It's not, and due to the fact that most of us are sleeping, we don't even see that, right? We don't see how insane we are, all of us, and how we're looking out there when in fact we are projecting the movie. We are projecting the movie. Now, as far as like who's right and who's wrong, what difference does that make? Anything that has to do with the world is war, because it's always about opposites, and we are sameness at its best. We are this one being. He writes here, we are seeing one of the lowest frequencies that exist on this planet. If we remain on the frequency of victimhood, of hate, of retaliation, or feeling justified by God to torture other human beings, we are clearly siding with the problem, not the solution. Only oneness is the solution to separation. Connection with God is the solution to disconnection. This is the only way out. Not even non-dual tricks of bypassing or using concepts such as it isn't real are part of the solution. If you come to me with suffering that feels very real, of course you're going to, and this is something I've always felt like. If somebody comes to me and says, so-and-so just died, my child, And then, you know, because I was listening to somebody who was talking about Tony Parsons. Tony Parsons, I guess, is a being that has gone back to, to the absolute. In other words, he said, there's nothing you can do. It's just God. He doesn't have any thoughts. He has nothing. However, when he says there's nothing you can do to wake up, that's not very helpful. But if you're going to do something, I can tell you, you will be directed, because every one of us is being lived by the one. We cannot do this process wrong either. But it's important for me to just say that the one thing that I never, and I'm really happy about this with the Course in Miracles stuff, I never said to someone when they were upset that it's not real, because that doesn't help. It really doesn't help. When our nervous system is jacked up, we can't hear anybody but our crazy mind. So today, how do we look at this? If holiness is wholeness. So remember, the decisions that are being made are not by Sharon, not by Dove, not by, Hamaj. It's all done by the one, right? It's all done by the one who's bringing us home. And the story looks pretty bad today, right? But here we are, and it's just, heaven is a state of mind. There's no place to go. It just is. And with that, I'll turn the mic over to you, Doug.
All right, Sharon, I think you summed it up very nicely. I heard you say, everything in this world really is, a thing for war. And that's true. It's the war that we wage against ourselves. The war we wage against ourselves, thinking I'm waging against an enemy. But he tells you in chapter 1 and 2 of A Course in Miracles, the world was made as an attack on God. So we don't ever include God in our daily thoughts. It's always, Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, but there's always an enemy. There's always something outside of me that must be defeated. And of course, it's really self-defeat. I'm doing this to myself. I'm punishing myself for my own belief and guilt of what I did to God. That's the whole course summed up. I mean, when Ken Wapnick says his two favorite lessons is lesson 5, I am never upset for the reason I think. Well, yeah, you can blame all those terrible barbarians. They're worse than ISIS. My God, they should be obliterated, annihilated. Yeah, the whole world is about nihilism. I'm going to go back into my other thing from the last time I shared to kind of add a little bit more to what I said. I really hope now that Hamas took them down the rabbit hole, they don't go further down the rabbit hole by making a mistake of putting all their eggs in one basket. I mean, they called Hebrews, Israelites from around the world who weren't even in Israel to fly back in to take their place as a soldier. And they're now saying that if what they plan to do in Gaza and what they say they're going to do, that will be told by generations to come, they admit thousands of Israel soldiers will die. But they don't care as long as they kill the others completely. What do you mean by completely? So there's not even one Hamas left. Oh my God. What you want to do to others, you're really doing to yourself. I heard the other day to add a little bit more vinegar to the solution. The Iranian government, the Ayatollahs, there might be two, I think, but one of them is a member of the Shiite sect that believes in the apocalypse. In fact, they want the apocalypse to happen because that would fulfill the prophecy of Allah. And what is the apocalypse? But like total destruction. And that's what he's looking for. He's not looking for, just have a battle on the battleground. He's looking for total destruction. That's what the apocalypse is. And that story is actually told in the book of Revelations in the New Testament. And if you, I remember coming to that particular part and said, no, that's not going to happen, because as the story goes in Revelations, and if you know the book of Revelations, which I don't, you know exactly where it is. It says the apocalypse will start with a war that starts in Israel. It actually says that. Well, this is a war that's starting in Israel. And, in 1945, the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing 100,000 in each, maybe more. And the Japanese government surrendered. Well, here we are, 75 years later. Nuclear weapons are much bigger now. In the old days, there were 10,000 tons of TNT. They're much bigger now. So if there is a malevolent force in the world right now who wants to bring on apocalyptic times, you start a war in Israel so that it fulfills the prophecy in the book of Revelations. Now you might say, well, Dov, how do you even think about such things? I mean, my God, that has nothing to do with the Course in Miracles. Well, nothing that you look at on the boob tube has to do with the Course in Miracles too. It's all nightmarish dreams. I heard you say, when someone is having a problem, I never tell them that this is not real. And of course, that's loving of you. That's kind of you, because they can't hear that. But none of this is real. You know that, and I know that. But as long as you're in the nightmarish dream, anything could happen. Who knew that on what they call their 10-7, like we used to have, we have 9/11.
You taking Scrappy out?
Hi, Sharon. We have 9/11. They now have 10-7. On 10-7, the world turned upside down. And I hope they're not falling into a trap. So you might say, your hope has nothing to do with the Course. And that's exactly why Ken Wapping says, I'm never upset for the reason I think. I'm upset because I see something that's not there, and I can choose peace instead of this. Lesson 34. So to quiet the mind, to restore the mind to its peaceful place. So I don't look out there and worry about the apocalypse. I got to see things differently. Above all else, I am determined to see things differently. And how are you going to do that, Dov? Well, I go right back to my lesson 1. It doesn't really mean anything. That's the only way you can see things differently. Because if you give meaning to any of this stuff, you're already taking sides. You're saying I'm a body, and I don't want to be annihilated, because that's what the apocalypse is. And who knows? Given that you were born in the West, and we see people in other parts of the world being the enemy. And I mean, look at what they do to people. We can never do that. We can never do that. They do it. So they are darkness, we are light. As long as you see sides, I don't care what you describe the sides as, dark and light, us and them, good and bad, right and wrong. You're dreaming. The separation never happened. Exactly as you say. If you believe in a 2 + 2 = 4 world, you're out of your mind. That means the separation happened. There's good and bad, right and wrong, us and them, you or me. That's division. I mean, you don't have to go to Israel to talk about division. Just look at what's going on in Washington and laugh. You gotta laugh. Sharon, over to you.
It's funny because, when we talk about this stuff, especially when we get into A Course in Miracles, somehow it says free will exists, and I found that interesting from the beginning because I figured, yes, I can choose either Holy Spirit or the ego. Well, here's something that I picked up from Daniel's book, and it happens to be a wonderful book. It's called A Kiss from Reality. Look, today's lesson is about our holiness. So here he's writing something that I think is helpful for my mind anyway, and whoever maybe picks up on this. But the free will, or the permission given to us to determine for ourselves what we will do, enters not on the level of how things actually work, but only on the level of experience. Like the optical illusion I mentioned before, it most certainly looks and feels like free will is real. But the fact is, it isn't, especially because there's no one to have it. The whole is the doer. However, it is given so that life would not be a mere mechanical process, but a lived experience. If we knew what was to come, life would be robotic and dead. It is not knowing which lets us feel alive. In fact, children teach us that the less we know, the more alive we are. Sages teach this too. While we may think that they are wise people who know it all, any genuine sage will tell you he knows nothing. And see, what is a sage really doing? You need do nothing is what? A Course in Miracles saying you do not have to plan a healed mind, because in the moment, when you are in the now, you are connected with the intelligence of the universe. You are no longer traveling as a separate entity with a separate opinion. You are getting the information from the wholeness because you've united with wholeness. So life wishes to know itself, and it can only do that through the concept of relationship. So Sharon and Dove are concepts that life is living through us. And what would that mean? That what we are? If we are life, we are God, right? And that is just the play. But remember, the play is illusory. All consciousness is illusory. Consciousness is the domain of the ego, and it only really says that when it refers to A Course in Miracles that I've seen anyway. There could be other books, but a lot of times I think a lot of teachers think that this is it, that we are in heaven now. And in a way we are, because it's a state. It's not a place, right? However, we never really left our creator. And that's what this whole book is about. The character that I'm playing isn't even important, even as the characters that's the being that's in God right now. You think that the character, not the character, you think that this God that I am really cares if I know that this character is Sharon or not? Because it's a sideshow. It's a meaningless sideshow. Every single lesson is bringing us to surrender to the nothingness that we are. So by letting life just live us, and that's basically what it is happening. And years ago I listened to Roger Costello. I was really interested in a lot of the the Eastern teachers at that time. And I think Roger was both a course student, and he did a lot of Sailor Bob stuff, because it's all the same, really. It's just different semantics, but the bottom line is that when we think when we're doing something wrong here, we can't be, because you see, I'm holding my hands up now as I talk, right? But who's doing that? That's consciousness doing it, right? There never was a human here. It's consciousness. Sharon is consciousness. Dove is consciousness. So the entire purpose of this dream is for relationships to connect through love. And that is our lessons continually. What happened to you? Oh my God, that happened. Yes. And you need to forgive. Why? Because what are you? Unconditional love, right? You're not a person. No one can hurt you. No one can do a thing. And all the things about the energy of trying to retaliate or to get revenge or any of that, that's a lower frequency. It's a loud frequency, and it's power in the system. But it's not. It seems to be power, but it's force. Power exists only from the one true being, right? What we want to do is see when we become the sentient being that we really are, because, the non-sentient is the human. The human's not a sentient being. The human's a conditioned response through the play, right? So that's why we are, every part of us is alive when we realize, number one, that none of this happened. Number two, that it's a play and it means nothing. Number three is we're already home. And the only war is really, do I want to pick the right mind or the wrong mind? Now, how does that happen if there's no free will? Well, even that is completely a simulation, right? This whole play, like you watched Netflix last night, that's what this is. This is no different than a Netflix movie. And you can't get it wrong. You can't make a mistake. You're always perfect. And that's all I have. So over to you, Dove.
All righty. Yep, it's like watching last night's streaming Netflix. It's just a movie. And I'm sitting in the theater, passing the popcorn over to Jesus, who says, it's just a movie. It's just a dream. I noticed that in today's lesson, Ken Wapnick's commentary is, the lesson 285 is, my holiness shines bright and clear today. And then I'm looking at Ken's commentary, and he says, we should awaken every morning in joy. I noticed the word should, and I know Ken pretty well. He hardly ever uses the word should, because should is it's certainly an ego word. Shoulda, coulda, woulda are the ego's three famous words. Oh, you should have done this. You could have done this. I would have done this. No, shoulda, coulda, woulda is a dream. So we don't wake up every morning in joy, because we wake up. I mean, I wasn't thinking of the Israeli war when I woke up, but I was thinking of things I got to do today, and there's nothing wrong with the things I got to do, but, when am I going to find time to do it? And maybe I'd rather do something else. I'd rather go to the park and sit in the breeze and do something else. Why should I be doing this thing? It's paperwork, it's this, it's that. So we don't wake up in the morning in joy, because I think I'm a body. And the whole thing in this world is the identity problem. As long as you think you're a body, you got to do things. But he tells you, you don't have to do anything to be the Holy Son of God. And that's what today's lesson is. My holiness shines bright and clear today. So I'm not thinking of my holiness. I'm thinking of what I got to do. Do. There's no doing in being the Holy Son of God. There's no doing. So can I be as love created me? Can I be as happiness created me? God's will for me is perfect happiness. Why am I thinking about what I got to do? Do. So spirit need not be taught, but the ego must be. Learning is ultimately perceived as frightening because it leads to the relinquishment, not the destruction, of the ego to the light of spirit. And you find that in chapter 4, section 1, right teaching and right learning. I also put something up here in the chat, also in the room, which came across. I'm doing a webinar with the Foundation for Inner Peace coming up. I think it's October. I think it's a Thursday, October 24th. Happily to say, Scott Grace is going to be one of the members of the webinar. I'm happy about that. And Cindy Laura Renard's going to be there. And I was invited. So and it's going to be a fun thing. The title of it, I think, is Ask Questions and we act out the answers. So instead of being a conceptual thing about words and all that, it's going to be like a Halloween party in a way. It's going to be, come and dread. I recently I said, what is the world but a big giant Halloween party? Everyone comes in costume asking, do you know who I am? Now, if you see the Ayatollah in his black cape or something like that, say, yeah, I know who you are. You are the face of evil. You gotta laugh. You gotta laugh. So in that same section, right teaching and right learning, I put up the thing that the FIP just sent out. At least, well, I don't know if they send it in all their letters, but it says from chapter 4, section 1, paragraph 13, I need devoted teachers. I need devoted. This is Jesus talking to you directly. I need devoted teachers who share my aim of healing the mind. Notice he doesn't say of healing the world. Big difference. So we who talk about the world like something should stop, or we got to do something, or let's talk peace. No, nothing's going on in the world. Absolutely zero is going on in the world. It's the mind that projects its own guilt onto the world, that sees the guilt over there. That's what the world is. It's a projection. And so we see with our perception, projection makes perception, guilt in my mind. So Jesus is talking at the level of source. I need devoted teachers who share my aim of healing the mind. And when I saw it, I said, that's exactly what ACIM Gather is for. ACIM Gather is for people who want to take their place among the teachers, to be given an opportunity to take their place among the teachers so they can actually be devoted to healing the mind. Whose mind? Someone out there? Someone out there has to hear it? No, healing my own mind. What I give to myself. Lesson 126. That's the law of love, the law of mind, the law of God. That's 3 laws, all in lesson 126. What I give to myself. You can only teach yourself. You can't teach anybody. And when you said someone is in fear and they're really upset, I don't tell them it's not real. We got to tell ourselves it's not real. We got to tell ourselves it's not real. It's in your gentle laughter. If I can return my mind to peace, if I can return my mind to being mellow yellow, peaceful, I rest in God. Because our minds are joined, it's contagious. I just can't buy into it. If you buy into it, you are the ego. If you're spirit, you know that none of this is true. Nothing. I'm the dreamer of the dream. I'm not the figure in the dream. I'm not the victim anymore. And there are no other victims. All those 360,000 Israeli soldiers, yeah, a lot of them are going to be killed. They know that going in, but they're not victims. And in case someone wants to drop a bomb on them, they're not victims. We do this to ourselves. It's a self prophecy for ourselves. We do this to ourselves. And with that, Sharon, I'm going to turn it back on over to you.
Funny, people are texting me to ask me how I am. Some of my friends that are that know I'm Jewish, with all this. And the truth is, it's interesting. Whatever you put your attention on, your mind on, will be the thing that you live with the rest of the moment, the day, or whatever. And me getting COVID, I got that on Monday, and I would say my guidance is, well, first of all, I don't even have cable. Second, why do I want to look for it? We have a lot of movies that show that. Am I upset? Yeah, of course I feel as on a human level, of course. But on the level of saving the world, what Jesus is saying is that's where you save the world. You save it with your mind. You don't save it with anything else. You don't save it with a gun. You don't save it with the teaching. You save it with your mind. If you see, you can see peace instead of this, and it brings you to that kind of clarity, then you're home. Ken has said Jesus underscores the purpose nature of our suffering, grief, and loss in the term he used in the previous lesson. He informs us these are purposely chosen to reinforce the seeming reality of this separation in our separated self. However, when we choose the holiness of ourself instead and joyfully anticipate the lessons this day will bring, pain has no further use. You see, if we're just waiting now for what lesson is Holy Spirit going to give me now, right? Because every lesson is a lesson in love. Isn't that it? The law of love is that everything is love. So when we think of this killing and all that, that's a veil over love. That's all it is. So he says he reinforced us. These are purposely chosen to reinforce the seeming reality of the separation in our separation self. However, when we choose the holiness of ourself instead and joyfully anticipate the lessons this day will bring, pain has no further use. And what is Jesus always saying in the Course? Basically, this is your classroom. There's no life here. Your classroom. Once you get that in your head, what is my classroom teaching me today? What is it teaching me right now? Remember that life is our dream, and if we are in pain, it is to fulfill our wish to prove that the separation is real. Freud's theory of wish fulfillment was the key to his understanding dreams and to Jesus, our lives are also a dream to fulfill a wish, not the wish Freud identified to be sure, but a wish nonetheless to preserve identity as a separate entity and then hold on to someone else responsible for it. You ever blame somebody when somebody, like when you're a kid and then you blame your sibling, you always feel guilty, right? Because on the level of being, we know there isn't anybody out there, right? So when I would be like, there was a time, this stands out in my head, that when I was a little girl, like maybe 10, somehow I got ink on my mother's new drapes. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I don't know how it happened, but I had a sister that was 2 years old, and I pretended that I didn't do it. Why? Because I would have been in trouble. Why? Because I'm 10 and she's only 2. So she didn't get yelled at, but it was me that did it. And do you think that felt good? It never feels good because we're lying to ourselves. And you don't know that until you know it, you don't know it. You don't know that you're lying. You don't know that you're in a dream of your own making. You don't know any of this stuff. So, what it's saying, basically is only that true forgiveness can give remembrance of the immortality, which is the gift of holiness and love. Forgiveness must be given by a mind which understands that it must overlook all shadows on the holy face of Christ. And what's a shadow? A shadow is this thought, is me, is this character, right? So now we're going to have Thankful Thursday. I think we have Regis coming on next, and then we have Karen today. And I'm going to rest because I am recuperating from COVID, however long that might be. And the body mind that's recuperating is just a small part of what I am. I am the wholeness of everything. It's what Jesus would say, I am the truth, the way, and the life, right? And that's what we all are. And with that, thank you, Dove. Thank you all. And see you next week. Okay, Regis, it's time for you. Bye.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, I'm just going to.
Go ahead.
Regis is on right now, but we still have 2 minutes left. So in those 2 minutes, I'm going to say 2 things. One is from that same section, chapter 4, section 1, right teaching and right learning. That's the place where it says your worth is established by God, not by your teaching and learning or anything that you do here. So our worth is, we are the holy Son of God. That is today's lesson. My holiness shines bright and clear today. And if I can wake up to that, that would be a nice awakening. The other thing I want to share, as we have 1 more minute left, is remember tonight is Thursday night, and as usual, the team, the group, the community that somehow all came together perfectly is meeting for another deep dive into the manual for teachers. Starts at 7 o'clock. So please join us. If you don't have the link, then please ask either Lynn or myself for the link to our Zoom that starts at 7. And we're here on Monday night, Tuesday night, Thursday night, and Saturday afternoon, all on that same Zoom, ACIM Gather Zoom. And with that, thank you so much, Sharon, and I'll be back here tomorrow with Suzanne DeKaiser. Without further ado, turning this mic on over to you, the one, the